All right, so this is another bad movie review. This is going to be on The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I did a review on Spider-Man 3, and this movie is worse, but has a lot of the same kind of issues. It's messy with the storylines. It's kind of all over the place tonally. It's not good. I think when it first came out in 2014, I think I gave it like an 8 out of 10 or something ridiculously high that I regret now. Because I guess I was just into the hype of it and I liked the movie, but I still like the movie, but yeah, it definitely has some issues. It's definitely not good. I think it's the worst of the Spider-Man movies. But anyway, it's directed by Mark Webb. So the movie starts off with Peter's parents. They're trying to get away. The father's trying to upload something, and it gets revealed later on that he wants to keep them from using his research for some bioweapon or something like that. So you see them get killed, or the plane go down and all that in the very beginning, and then it cuts to Spider-Man swinging around. He's having fun with it. He's taking on uh, Paul Giamatti, who will turn into pretty much the character that becomes the Rhino, and it's silly, it's over the top, kind of, but it's Spider-Man. It feels like Spider-Man. He's quipping and things like that, and it's actually really fun. And he almost misses his graduation. He does miss Gwen Stacy's valedictorian speech, and so he just barely gets there. Off right off the bat, you're like, okay, Andrew Garfield, you look old, man. You look a little too old to be just getting to your high school graduation. Like he looks like he's in his late 20s, early 30s. It's very distracting. Emma Stone, not so much, but definitely Andrew Garfield. And so he's having visions of Dennis Leary, Captain Stacy, Gwen Stacy's dad, because he promised he wouldn't be with her as a result of him being Spider-Man. But he's still going to be with her anyway, and so that causes arguments between them, even though they have a lot of chemistry and everything. Probably because the actors were dating in real life, and so she breaks up with him finally because she's tired of it just being on and off again because of his guilt, and so that leads to him just kind of stalking her for a good percentage of like the rest of the movie, at least until they get back together. Max Dillon gets saved by Spider-Man during that whole thing with Paul Giamatti, and so he's obsessed with Spider-Man. Actually, he already was because he already had a shrine to him at his at his place. It's so ridiculous. We'll get back to him definitely, but he works at Oscorp. He made this power grid that he didn't get credit for, I guess, and he has to stay back even though it's his birthday. So so he stays back, and there's a accident, and he gets bit by eels. It fixes the gap in his teeth. It's dumb. So he goes into, I think he was in Times Square, and he like loses it over his power. Spider-Man stops him, but then he gets taken by Oscorp, and they start performing experiments on him. So then also you have Harry Osborn, who still has some kind of friendship with Peter, even though they haven't seen each other since they were like 11, I think. um, Norman Osborn dies and like leaves everything to Harry, the company, or at least he's on the board of the company. And apparently they have a disease that turns them into the Goblin. That's how they become the Green Goblin, I guess, in this version. But the disease kills them when they do like start growing fingernails and weird stuff. So he spends the entire movie trying to find some way to save himself. He learns through some kind of research that he can use Spider Man's blood because one of the spiders must have bitten him at Oscorp. He puts that together somehow. Spider Man won't give him his blood, and that's why he wants to take on Spider Man. But it feels like mostly he's after Oscorp. Spider Man's, he's, well, Peter, he's looking into his parents and things like that, and you have the on again, off again thing with Gwen. But eventually, Harry Osborn, after he gets turned down by Spider Man, frees Electro and takes on Oscorp because Oscorp they were trying to out him from the company anyway. They tried to frame him for what happened with Electro, and so they team up, Harry Osborn and Electro. Electro takes over the power grid, and Harry gets the spider venom, which actually turns him into the Green Goblin. And I guess he just finds the suit and the glider and just puts it on. I mean, that's how poorly written this movie is. And so there's some planes that are going to crash into each other, but Spider-Man takes on Electro, so that doesn't happen. Gwen was supposed to go to Oxford, but I guess she didn't, and so that's why she's there with him to help him take on Electro. And then Electro blows up and things like that. But then after they take on Electro, Harry flies in there, and so Harry takes Gwen. He drops her down like a clock tower. I'm not sure why a clock tower. I guess it was just a creative place for it to happen, rather than it being just like off a bridge, which is what happened in the comic books. So Spidey tries to catch her after he takes out Harry, and he doesn't get to her time. She dies, and so um, he quits being Spidey for a little bit. But Rhino comes up and all that, so he decides to be Spider-Man again, and that's pretty much it. This movie has a lot going on. I like the score; it feels very heroic. I even like the dun 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 with Jamie Foxx saying whatever the hell he's saying in that, which is unnecessary. But I still like that. I like the CG. It looks very cartoony, but it works for the movie. I like the fight scenes. There's something with the fight scenes that keeps me from liking them as much with a few of them, and I'll get to that in a second. But I still like the fight scenes. I like him taking on Electro. It's very cartoony. At that power plant with Itsy Bitsy Spider and all that, Peter and Gwen really works. I think they're great. Other than the whole oh well, you're being too cute. Oh, that little thing that you do, you got to stop that. Oh, that was getting to be too much, and the on again, off again, obviously, but I still think it works.
I met him. He was an electrical engineer in the building, and he loved Spider-Man, by the way. He was like a fanatic.
I didn't get love vibe last night. I got more of a wants to kill me with his electricity vibe.
That's actually kind of what it's like to love you.
Lastly, the death scene with Gwen Stacy, other than the spider web turning into a hand, which is cheese, I like that scene. I think it's very dramatic. I think it's well done. I think it really does get to the emotion of Spider-Man and losing her after this. Even though it's been a little bit much, the whole storyline with their relationship, even just through this movie, you really feel the pain. I think Andrew Garfield really sold that. But anyway, that's it. This movie it's not good. So it's all over the place. It has way too much going on in it. But the thing that really, really kept kind of getting in the way of the story, I think, is the parents' storyline, right? Like, why is he so focused in on the parents? I really don't know. Like it really does feel like somebody was like, oh, let's just throw some of the parents stuff in there. Let's just throw it in there. I mean, some of it doesn't even make sense. Like he left Peter there, and they were gonna leave, and they're like, we don't want to involve Peter in this, but he directly made the his research linked to his DNA, and it's like, well, if they wanted to get your DNA, wouldn't they come after Peter then? I mean, he's right there in New York, and you're fuck off wherever. And then they kill him anyway on the plane, but the guy kills the pilot, but the plane doesn't start to go down until like a couple minutes later or something. The dude comes up and he's like, hey, what's going on? And he starts washing blood off his hands right in front of him. It's so bad. It's so bad. And then he goes down into the subway because of a token to look at. There's like a secret compartment in the subway. Like, how did the dad even set that up? It's bad. And like, you'll have Peter like looking at his phone, looking at a picture of him and Gwen, which really should be the big emotional thing in this movie. You don't need the parent thing at all. But he'll look at a picture of her and then all of a sudden decide he wants to put together this weird like conspiracy theory type thing where he's researching in his on his parents and mainly his father. It's weird. What is the link between those two things? How does that lead to this? It's ridiculous. And Aunt May calls him out on it, and like at the graduation when she's like, I wish Ben was here, and he's like, yeah, me too, and my parents. She's like she really just react to it. And then later on, she just straight up tells him, like, no, you're mine. Like, they left you. I've been raising you, right? As far as I'm concerned, you're mine. Oh, and by the way, there's no way that she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man. He makes it very, very obvious with him saying he washed the American flags. That part of it doesn't work. The tone is so all over the place. I mean, you have like really serious stuff, like the stuff with the parents at the beginning, like it's some kind of like really dramatic like action movie at the beginning with the parents. Like really the parent stuff gets pretty serious. But then you have Spider-Man kind of just telling jokes and things like that. Even though I do like it, he's dressed up in his Spidey outfit but with like a beanie and stuff like that. When he has a cold, I'm Spider-Man. And then you have like the really ridiculous with like Electro being experimented on by some weird scientist with like a terrible accent. It's like, what is this?
You are correct. I'm here to study you, to understand what you are, why you are, and I will get results.
It's just all over the place. I don't get it, and it's just there's too much going on, right? Let's get to Electro. Electro, I have to imagine Jamie Foxx didn't read the script before he took the role because this is awful, man, with the gap in his tooth. I mean, he's telling Spider-Man, "Oh, thank you for the birthday cake," with the mirror and the picture of Spider-Man on the wall. It is ridiculous. I was enjoying the movie, watching it in the theater, and even in the theater, I almost fell out of my seat laughing. I was like, this feels like parody level. In a cartoon, it wouldn't be this cartoony.
Why wouldn't you visit me? We're best friends. What are you doing? You made me a cake? Wow. That's what the press needs. They should call you the Amazing Spider-Man. You like that, Spidey? I like it a lot, Max.
You know, the whole thing of him being like, oh my god, he's my best friend. Like, where are you getting that from? I mean, even his motivation as a villain for like Spider-Man, oh Spider-Man, you know, he said, oh, we were friends, and you know, this whole like Stan like obsession and things like that. It feels better for the villain motivation for him to be going after Oscorp, which he ends up doing anyway, because they mistreated him, they used his designs without giving him credit or whatever, they stole his designs. They mistreated him when he worked there for no reason at all, making him stay there on his birthday, just like almost to almost troll him, almost because they just wanted to do it to be cynical. They tried to make him essentially disappear when they found out the accident happened with him. And then they started performing like weird experiments on him, or got a scientist or whatever to do it after he got captured by Spider-Man. Like, wouldn't you go after Oscorp, right? Oscorp is the one you really want, to take care of. But whatever.
A world without power. A world without mercy. A world without Spider-Man.
Yeah, the whole Harry Osborn thing. He is like desperate. First of all, he doesn't do anything in this movie. He feels very tacked on, especially when he fights Spider-Man at the end. It does feel like the whole movie was supposed to be just about Electro, and then it's just like, oh yeah, we got Green Goblin here. Yeah, let's get like a couple minute exchange there and just have him kill Gwen Stacy because we need Gwen Stacy to die in this movie. Pretty much, it feels like they wanted to kill Gwen Stacy, obviously because the whole thing about the guilt and all that. It feels like the place to take that story. But they wanted to kind of harken back to the comic books, so they wanted the Green Goblin to be involved. That kind of feels like the only reason why they really decided to involve him, because he does really feel tacked on, right? And it doesn't really feel like they really have a friendship. Oh, Harry, now that's the Harry I know. Like, it doesn't work. It feels very forced. But he has this thing where, first of all, if you take pictures of someone, that means you automatically know them. They've done that. They did that in the Sam Raimi ones too with Harry, and it's never made sense. But either way, like you're like in your you're like 18, 19, something like that, like college age. Your dad didn't die till he was like 50 something or 60, whatever, however old your father was. And then, it also doesn't make sense that you have this disease in your family and somehow, I guess, Harry Osborn didn't know about it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the whole family would know. Like, even extended family, I have to imagine, if it's blood related. Like, if all of your blood relatives probably have this weird goblin disease. But he acts like he needs it right away, which I guess he does because it starts showing on his neck. But like, you would think that because of his father being affected by it, it's almost like his father, just talking to his father about it or just knowing about it made the disease actually activate. Because like, why would it be killing him at such a young age when it didn't kill his father until he was later on? It doesn't make sense. He should definitely have enough time to come up with something else rather than doing something really risky that could, be ultimately like negative for him. But whatever.
We just need a bit more time to
I
figure
do not
out
have
something else.
time! You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
That's just about it. There's one last thing I wanted to talk about, and it's it's one thing that really like annoys me, and it even did in the theater when I was like enjoying the movie, which I still ironically really like this movie. I think I watch it every like other year, every year because it's that funny. When I was rewatching it before making this video, I was crying laughing at some of this stuff like Electro and stuff. It is just that hilariously like parody level bad. But there's one thing that I just never liked. It's the crowds. The crowds behind the police line when clearly like their lives are in jeopardy, right? That are just kind of like standing there cheering on Spider-Man and being horrified of anything Electro does or anything like in Times Square. Right? Even in Times Square, like they're not even just behind the police line. The ones that are just standing on the stairs, they're clearly there so that Spider-Man can save them later on. But they're not behind anything. Like they're just standing there, right? Imagine, like this is just ridiculous. Imagine there was like an active shooter or something like that, right? Imagine just being behind a line and just having a crowd of people just watch. Like imagine that. Like that's ridiculous. Like you would be trying to get out of there. The police wouldn't have you just there to watch. And it takes you out of the scene. It really breaks the immersion because it feels like they're just in Times Square, like watching two actors put on a show, right? It really does feel like that. It doesn't feel like this is actually happening. This is a threat to people's lives. It completely takes you out of it. And especially at the end with Rhino destroying cars and, shooting at cops.
Kid, you gotta get.
Spider-Man is back!
It takes you out of it to where even if you enjoy those action scenes, which I do still, even today, it takes you out of it. It just, why is that like that? It's like Spider-Man 3, nobody likes that movie. Why would you repeat that really ridiculous thing that happened in the climax of that movie? This is the worst of the Spider-Man movies. It's gotta be because, it's all over the place is messy, which Spider-Man 3 also is, but this is definitely worse. It gets to the point where, the tone is all over the place, that it goes from super serious to, like I said, parody level bad. It's crazy. I laugh till I cry at Electro in this movie. It's like Jamie Foxx's Electro is, it's even more ridiculous than it would be in a Spider-Man cartoon. Like it's crazy. It's all over the place. This movie's all over the fucking map. And then they're constantly shoving whatever they can. They have the Hall of Sequels where they're just trying to like set up the villains for the Sinister Six because at the end of the day that's what this is. They're just trying to make like an overall Spider-Man universe have the Sinister Six, right? That's clearly what they were going for here. Where they're forcing in certain characters like Black Cat and Smythe and some other characters. Like it's too much. Like Rhino's technically not even in this movie. Like he's only at the very end because we need to set up future movies and things. The movie really should have ended with him just quitting being Spider-Man, and then you could go from there in the next movie. But whatever. I guess you need that triumphant like return. But yeah, this is just bad. So I'm gonna give it utter trash, just like I gave Spider-Man 3. Even though I do think Spider-Man 3 is better than this. It's just this is what happens. I think when the studio is just too into like we gotta make a universe, we gotta do this, we gotta throw this thing in there. This is what happens, right? We gotta do the same thing as the MCU, only just with Spider-Man. Sony obviously doesn't know what the fuck they're doing with a lot of things, but especially Spider-Man. And it's not good, man. This movie is laughably bad, like legitimately. So yeah, that is it. It's the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and we're done.